Guys who slept with a friend's mom, tell us how it was.
When I was in high school, I worked in a shitty restaurant. Sliced vegetables, washed dishes, in short, was a 6. There was a waitress working in this restaurant who started throwing me unambiguous hints. In general, I realized that this woman, who was much older than me, she was well over 30, decided to really hit on me. And then one evening, when we were closing the restaurant, she bluntly declares, "Now I'm going to my house, I'm going to strip naked, I'm going to smoke, and I want you to come with me." Of course I went. She liked it so much that she continued to call me to her further. It lasted more than 3 months. As a result, she quit the restaurant, and we stopped seeing her. Meanwhile, a guy the first used to know started hanging out with us at school. Once we drove with this guy in a wheelbarrow and smoked. Suddenly he's like,
"Bro, let's stop by my place, get some food. If anything, my mom is cool, not with us."
Just as we started to drive up to the house, all of a sudden, damn, this is Sarah's house. Runs through my head. We went in, I see that the furniture is the same. Damn, Sarah's his mom. I'm on the lookout and I just hope that his mother doesn't wake up. She woke up, came down, and the first thing she said when she looked at me was,
"What the hell are you doing here?"
It was super awkward.
How did you handle this situation? Unless, of course, it's personal.
Threesome with mom and her son. This was the only way to resolve this situation.
I was 17 or 18 years old when I first met my friend's mom. I didn't notice any sexual attraction to her, maybe because I was a virgin, but over time I realized that there was an attraction. One day I came home from a military training camp. After about 3 days, I decided to visit my sidekick, and when I came to his house, I began to feel something special inside me when I was next to his mother. In general, the friend was still living with his mom, and we decided to organize a picnic. Everything went quite normally, and at the end of the picnic she asked me to help her carry the chairs to the basement. We took the chairs with her to the basement, and I do not know how to explain it. In short, we started touching each other. I don't want to be too explicit, but it was some super crazy shit. There was a washing machine and dryer in the basement, which we relied on. Plus, there was a sports bench for the barbell, which we safely moved to after. Well, we finished all the actions on the basement steps. This case is definitely in the top 5 of my most frostbitten experiences in my life. For the next 3+ years, I felt very, very guilty. I just couldn't look my friend in the eye and hang out with him, knowing that I fucked his mom. And, in the end, I told him everything. My story was as neat and tactful as possible. We were sitting in his car about a month after I got back from the Marines. We were smoking. When he heard my story, he looked at me like the piece of shit I felt like. We had a little fight right in the car. Fast forward to our days. We still talk to him sometimes, but I know that he never really forgave me. I don't blame him for that. I still feel like a fucking asshole, and if I could take it all back, I would never do it. Personally, I think friendship is the most important thing. Why did you tell him about it? Obviously, he didn't want to know. What kind of guy wants to know anything about his mother's intimate life at all? Maybe it was selfish of me, but I couldn't stay burdened with guilt. I felt like shit. My principle was that if you screwed up in something, then you have to admit it. I wish none of this had happened.
It happened at night. Opa was alone when suddenly someone knocked on the door.
I've already told this story here, but okay, I'll tell it again. It was my ex's mother, and the whole situation happened 20 years ago. Imagine how old I am. I was 22 at the time and she was 43. She was always hot. We had a New Year's Eve party that year. It was an awesome party, we all had a great time and all that. At the end of the party, I went into the bedroom to pick up my coat. All the clothes of the party guests were hanging there, and noticed that my ex's mother was lying on the bed. I decided to make a joke and said something like, "Cool, I came here to get into bed, and you're already in it." I will never forget what happened next. She opened the blanket and said, "You can lie down next to me if you want." I don't think it's worth saying that I did. Later that night, I went down to the kitchen to get some water. Her daughter, my ex, was in the kitchen and, it turns out, heard us tumbling with her mom. She looked at me and said she couldn't even look in my direction anymore. So I said, "Then don't look," and went back to the bedroom. Of course, this is a shitty act on my part, but I was young and stupid. Then we met her mom a little more. Awesome topic. 10 out of 10. I would love to repeat it. Hold on. Was she already your ex at the time of those events? Yes, she was already my ex for 4 years before all this happened. Ah, got it. I imagined a completely different situation. Not really on the topic, but I think it will fit here. Anyway, My mom was dating my friend. We studied with him in the same year in college, and the whole movement began at that time. He was a student from Pakistan, and I was a student volunteer who was supposed to help him get used to everything here. We became really good friends. He began to come to my house often to study together or just to rest. That's how he met my mom and got close to her. He liked her from the very beginning. Maybe he had already started hitting on her initially, but I didn't know that. I started noticing this a few months later. But it still seemed that he was just friendly towards her and nothing more. At least that's what I thought. When the second semester came, I began to suspect that after all, my Pakistani sidekick was trying to hit on my mom. However, I didn't think about it for too long, since mom was married, and I couldn't even imagine that there was even the slightest chance that she would fall in love with my friend. In short, I scored a bolt on it. But they had already started dating, not openly, at the end of the first semester. Eventually, Dad began to suspect something, and he and Mom started having problems. Mom tried to keep it a secret for a while, but eventually she told everything. They divorced last December. After this divorce, Mom and Sam continued their meetings without hiding it. P.S. Obviously, this is my fake account. Does the friend's dad count? I found him on Grindr and said hello to him. Dad looked much better in Grindr than in family photos. We began to meet regularly. Several times a month. My friend doesn't know anything about it, and I probably won't tell him anything. A friend knows that his dad is gay, but I don't think he knows that the folder is in a relationship. I think I won't explain in detail how good my buddy's dad is in bed. One day after school I went to visit my bosom friend. I have to admit that it was just an excuse to see his mom. I was literally obsessed with her. Unfortunately, she wasn't at home. I asked a friend, has she returned from her business trip? Or is this little minx avoiding me? I remember one day I was mowing the lawn in her yard, and she came out wrapped only in a towel. From the look in her eyes, I immediately realized that she liked me. Damn, what did she say? I think you missed there. To tell the truth, I almost came in my underpants. My friend's father recently left them, and I thought I could fill her void. As it turned out, my friend's mom was also crazy about me. During one of the overnight stays at a friend's house, we fucked up with her. The next day she was arrested. Most likely my friend called the police. Later it turns out, my friend was in love with me, and well, the fact that it is illegal for a 40-year-old woman to fuck with a 14-year-old guy. Is this whole story a reference to the song Stacy's Mom? It wasn't my friend's mom, but his aunt. I've known her for 10 years, but we hardly ever talked. She had such a purely American life. Husband, 3 sons. They liked hiking, archery and Boy Scout movement. Constantly hanging out with family and friends. Her husband cheated on her with the mothers of his sons' friends. She wasn't aware of it. One day she found out about it, but decided not to say anything, because she wanted to save the family. She kept it to herself for 4 years and finally, when she turned 40, 20 years married, she decided to divorce her husband. A very messy divorce. Her ex brainwashed their children that she decided to break up the family and therefore filed for divorce. He presented everything in such a way that in the end the children distanced themselves from her. Almost all of my teenage years, I often hung out at my friend's, her nephew's, house. We lived on the same street and often saw each other to smoke herbs, but just hang out together. One summer I spent almost entirely at my sidekick's house. I was about 23 years old, and his aunt was 42, when one day we were able to talk sitting at the table. She didn't smoke. She just visited her family, as at that time it was all she had left. After a couple of weeks, we began to have conversations with her, more and more often, then at their house, then at their pool. When there were a lot of people around us, our conversations were quite short. But we communicated with glances and light, random touches. She was in amazing shape. Cute blonde. Strong, determined. It was obvious that she had been through a lot. We started texting since we once exchanged numbers in order to throw a Halloween party for her family. In the end, our neutral correspondence turned into flirting. We started hugging each other when saying goodbye, and you know, she hugged me a little longer and tighter than normal friends do. One evening I was sitting at my friend's house and looking after him. Friends have left. I had nothing to do and I decided to call her, look at the dogs and the strange lizard of my friends. She accepted the invitation, and I think you understand how much I fucked up from excitement. She came. We ordered Italian food. She didn't want the food delivery guy to see her, and that's when I realized she had dirty intentions in her head. We were in front of the TV, her head pressed against my chest, and my palm against her ass. After about 30 seconds, we started kissing, and at the same time I started pulling off her pants. While they were pulling down their trousers, she said that she had not done this for 5 years, and was very worried. It was the hottest sex of my life. I remember him clearly. She asked me to come inside her to feel the warmth. She was my best sexual partner. Then within a year we met again 5 times. I went to her house. She cooked dinner for me, we drank wine and had the most passionate sex of my life. Eventually I found someone else, and she found someone else, but we stayed in touch. Then we met again. Both she and I separated from our new soulmates. I still see her a couple of times a year when I visit my friend for family kebabs. Everything is fine. We still communicate with looks and touches. Still hugging too long and tight. No one suspects anything.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching the video. Bye everyone.